Live from Indianapolis, Indiana, this is the iPad Possibilities Podcast with Tim Chatton and Ryan Anderson, episode number 7, the Padcaster. We're going to be talking about the Padcaster is what I like to call it, and simply running a podcast and doing all that you need to do with running a podcast on the iPad. This podcast is supported by the iPad Possibilities Podcast app found in the App Store for $2.99. With that, you'll gain early access to the shows 24 hours in advance. And this show is also supported by simply donating to the iPad fund I've started. Trying to get enough funds to actually buy an iPad when it comes out. So if you go to the Possibilities Network and go to the iPad Possibilities page, at the bottom of that page is help to buy an iPad, and I appreciate any donations you can so I can get an iPad as soon as possible and have better coverage for you guys. And this week, I'm also introducing Ryan Anderson, who is going to be co-hosting the show with me. And why don't you just introduce a little bit about yourself, Ryan?
Hey, this is Ryan Anderson, and excuse me, everybody, but I've had a cold for quite some time, and Tim and I talked last week about me coming on the show and helping them out. And while I love the idea of the iPad Possibilities show, I want to be here to help out. So looks like we're still a little early with my voice, so please bear with me. Hopefully this voice will return next week, but I will interject here and there throughout the show as Tim talks about his iPadcaster idea. So, Tim, thanks a lot for having me on the show.
No problem. First off, what I'm wondering, what's your favorite use case for the iPad before it comes out? What do you think will be?
Yeah, well, let me give you that and a little bit of who I am, I guess, trying to conserve my voice. But I've podcasted before. I currently run a podcast for anyone who happens to be a model train geek. That's what I run, the Model Railcast show. I've also had an iPad. We all got iPad on the brain. An iPhone devcast that I had put together the year it came out because I was one of the nuts that stood in line and purchased the first iPhone. So I did that for a while and then hung it up because development really wasn't there yet. That was back when Apple's idea for development was write a web app. So now that you can write apps for it, I'm just now getting into it because I got kind of busy at my day job and everything. So I'm out of Cincinnati, so I'm not too far from you, Tim. And in my day job, I'm an IT manager and programmer. So this is something I've been doing for years. I've been a techno gadget geek for a long time, and actually grew up on Apple. So it runs through my blood. And like I said, I'm glad to be here helping you out. Now, as far as the iPad goes, I just found out, as you know, which we'll talk about the show, that you can pre-order the iPad coming up here soon and get it, the first week of April. And I'm planning on getting the cheapest one. And my use case is going to be probably my favorite use cases is a tie between laying in bed and surfing the web instead of using my iPhone, or laying in bed playing games. Those are my two favorite. But the main reason for me getting an iPad is I want to use that as my development device because I can't live without my iPhone, because Apple kind of makes you provision a device for development. So you really can't have it be both. So I'm going to use the iPad as my development device. But laying in bed, surfing the web, and playing games, those are my two highest picks.
Okay. Awesome. So you're going with the Wi-Fi, the $500 model then?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
That's something I can justify with my wife. As long as I get some apps written and help pay for it.
Make it profitable, yeah. Well, I want to get into the meat of this show. And this week, I'm calling it the Padcaster. Podcast became a famous term when the iPod came out. I'm not sure why the term stuck, but it did. And I came with this concept of in an earlier show, I talked with Anthony Moody of iPad Alone, and what he's doing is he's basically getting rid of his laptop and all of his other computers, besides his iMac for syncing over media. But basically, he's doing all his computing, all of his real work he needs to do on the iPad. And what I thought, for me, is this even possible to run a podcast on an iPad? Because I can't run Audio Hijack Pro and other tools to do the advanced stuff you do with a podcast and running it. And first, I just wanted to run everybody through what it takes to basically run a podcast. And this is basically my workflow. First off, you need to gather your show notes and what you're going to talk about so you're organized and are on point with your show. So for that, I use Evernote and Safari. And then I record the show. If it's a monologue show, I'll just use QuickTime to record it. And if it's an interview or multiple people talking, I'll use Skype with Audio Hijack Pro to record it. And then from there, I just edit the show in GarageBand and then publish it with Libsyn. And that's basically the workflow that I use to run my podcast. Ryan, is that a similar workflow for you, or is there anything different about how you do your shows?
No, I do my show totally different. I actually don't even record on my Mac. I record on my HP laptop. Previously a Dell. I just upgraded it recently. And I use a mixer, a USB mixer. So, because I found when I first started, doing all the audio software stuff was a pain in the butt. And granted, I don't think it's as much of a pain in the butt on the Mac, but I didn't have a Mac at that time. Sure. And I didn't want to pay for all, Audio Hijack Pro and all the other stuff. But I did end up buying a mixer. So, it works out in the end. If you want to do a good sounding podcast, you do need to spend a little money. Get a decent mic and get a mixer or some software that'll help you do that. So basically, I run everything back through the mixer, and it comes in USB, and I record it with Audacity and edit it down in Audacity. Then I bring it over to the Mac and do final editing in GarageBand so I can do the chapters and the images and stuff. So that's my workflow.
Okay, cool. And now I'm just going to run through, is my workflow possible on an iPad? And then you could possibly share, Ryan, if you think your workflow would be doable. I'm not sure if it would be. But one thing to note is I'm considering that with the new SDK, with the new iPhone, Apple Touch operating system, whatever you want to call it, coming out, the 3.2 OS, that we've been seeing rumors and things like that suggesting that there will be a shared file system with the new operating system, meaning you can have one spot which different applications can access. So if you have audio stored on the device, you can access it from any application you need it to. It doesn't need to be from the iPad application or iPod application. And then another thing to note is Safari is also being shown to be able to download files, which currently it can't do. And that is another limitation that I think is going to be fixed in 3.2. So with that said, can you run an iPad? Can you run a podcast from an iPad? And as I said, the first step is simply gathering your show notes and recording what you want to talk about, writing that kind of stuff down. And Evernote has already announced they're creating a special version for the iPad, a special version that'll be optimized for the iPad. And that's what I use on the Mac, and I think it's going to translate very well to the iPad. And I think getting the show notes done, getting them ready to use, won't be a problem on the iPad. Recording a monologue show, I use QuickTime on the Mac. I think on the iPad, that's going to be very simple. Blue has a device called the Mikey, and it's designed for the iPhones. It's a professional quality mic, and it sounds great. And you'll be able to hook that into the iPad, and they might even have plans to create an iPad special mic, which is more of a desktop class mic where you'll get even better recordings off of it. So that shouldn't be a problem. There's many apps to do that. You can use the built-in app, Voice Memo. You can use the iPodcast Studio, which lets you record, edit, and publish within that app. and you can use Hindenburg, and there's a lot of other apps that you can use to record the show. And then the next
Hey, Tim.
question. Yep, sure.
What is the Hindenburg? I saw that in the show notes, and I couldn't find it.
Sure. Hindenburg it's designed for radio people, so they can record their shows and publish and do all that. It's pretty similar.
Is it a Mac app or an iPhone app?
It's both, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think it actually syncs over to the Mac app. It's a bit more pricey. I think it was $30 or something for the regular version on the iPhone, but it looked like a good app. It was similar to the iPadcaster Studio from what I saw.
Okay. It's just when you do a search for Hindenburg in Google, all you get is the Zeppelin thing.
Yeah, I think if you do an App Store search, it should come up.
Okay.
And we'll have show notes with links to all these apps that we talk about this show. And the real question I had for myself is it going to be possible to record an interview on the iPad? Now, on the Mac, it's very easy to do. You just grab Audio Hijack Pro and use Skype, and then you just record the audio coming in. And with that, you can record it. It's very easy to do, very simple to do. And there's other ways to record audio on the Mac from Skype. But with the iPad, and there not being background tasks, and even if you enable that, you're not able to record Skype conversations on jailbroken iPhones right now. It just doesn't work. So I was trying to figure out a way to do this. And as I was searching around, I found a very easy solution to record audio that you need for podcasts. To do this, you're using Skype to talk on the phone, to talk with other people. And you're also going to need to use Google Voice. You can sign up for an invitation, and those are coming out, I've heard. Just sign up for invitation at voice.google.com. And when you get your invite, basically Google Voice is your own number. It's the one number for all your numbers. So it forwards to your other phones. It can transcribe your voicemails. But the thing that really caught my eye was when someone calls your Google Voice number, it gives you answering options. And one of those answering options is if you hit 4, it will record that conversation. So what this means is you can link your Google Voice number to Skype. And when you answer your Skype phone using the Google Voice number, you hit 4, it will record that conversation, and then you can download that later to edit it for a podcast. And I thought this was pretty incredible because before, on the Mac, you had to use like Audio Hijack Pro, or you had to use some other way to kind of hack your system to make it record some kind of complicated tasks. And with Google Voice, you're able to do that with a single button press. You don't have to do anything tasking on your system to record the shows. So I thought that was a pretty cool find with Google Voice. And
that is pretty cool. I wonder what the sound quality is going to be like.
Yeah, that I'm not sure on. I have not tested this yet. I haven't. I've heard it's pretty good. It'll be typical Google quality, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, that's pretty awesome. That's a cool find.
And it's kind of scary, too, at the same time.
All right. Well, I'll have some wrap-up questions when you get through this.
Sure. But it's also kind of scary because anyone with a Google Voice number, they can record your phone calls without you knowing it. I mean, it's illegal, but they can. So just keep that in mind as you're going forth and talking to people.
Yeah.
That's something that's now easy for everybody to do. That's something that used to be really hard to do.
So is this something, Tim? I've listened to your first few shows, and that's how I got hooked up with you. But the idea behind your iPod possibilities is this because you want the iPad to be your only machine, like the friend you interviewed last week?
Not. I wanted to. I think there will always be a place for a Mac in your life as far as getting work done and being productive. But the hope of this show is to inspire developers to think outside the box as far as what can we do with this device? And maybe one day it will replace my Mac, and maybe one day we won't need traditional laptops, and perhaps there'll be even like a converter case that turns an iPad into a laptop that's a touchscreen or something like that.
Okay.
But
so you see yourself, when you talk about the idea of podcasting with an iPad, to me, I can see doing that if I'm on the road.
Yeah, exactly. You're on a road trip.
I wouldn't necessarily be sitting down doing this show with you on the iPad.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think for my main show when I'm here in town, it's a normal schedule. I think I'll use my Mac just because it's going to be more powerful. I'll have that workflow set up. But I think it's interesting to look at, is this going to be even possible for those that I don't want to spend the money to buy a Mac or a PC. I just want this $500 device. Can I do this? Can I do this kind of work I would have been able to do on a Mac? And I think it's also cool to see when I'm on the road, do I need to bring my laptop to do podcasts? I don't think you really do. As I'll kind of show you guys after this little segment's finished here. So it's pretty cool that you're able with Google Voice to now record your conversations over Skype and things like that. The next part about this is downloading those Google Voice recordings, because when you record them through Google Voice, that's where they live. They live on Google Voice. So as I talked about earlier with the iPhone operating 3.2, you'll actually be able to download files from Safari, and you'll actually be able to have a shared file system. So the podcast, the audio editors will be able to access that audio, and you'll be able to edit a show on the iPad. There's a couple of different audio editing tools already available, and some of those tools actually publish the show to, I use Libsyn to publish my shows, and you can actually publish your shows via FTP, via those apps, and then if you use your browser, if you go to Safari and go to Libsyn.com, you can post the show, and that's basically everything I would have done on a Mac on the iPad. So I can do everything I've done. I can get the show notes. I can record the show. I can record interviews. I can edit the show. I can publish the show. And I can post the show all on the iPad, all on the road, and do everything I need to do that I would have done on a Mac. So I think the answer is yes, you can actually run a podcast on an iPad, which even last week I thought would be impossible just because of the recording the conversation holdup I thought would be there. And it's really not, which is very cool.
Well, and that's, Tim, that's if you need, like you and me sitting here talking, if we need to have Skype. But if you're just doing a solo show, you could just, record it using the voice app or some other voice app.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I think macOS
Ken.
Yeah, macOS Ken's done some shows where he's just walking down the sidewalk with his iPhone recording his thoughts.
Well, it's still very neat. And you talked about the possibility of version 3.2, Safari allowing downloads through the browser. Now, I found something recently called Perfect Browser. It's 99 cents in the App Store. And I would assume it uses Safari back end, but it's got its own front end on top of it. And it allows you, among other things, to download images and store them to your photo gallery and download other things directly out of the browser. Plus, it does full screen. It's really neat. It's a very cool app for 99 cents. So that already exists, and I would assume they're going to come out with an iPad version. And, I'm almost surprised that, if you listen to other iPhone or iPad podcasts, these people talk about how Apple is limiting what gets in the App Store. I'm surprised they allowed it, because I'm surprised they didn't say, well, we already have that functionality.
Right, exactly.
But, they did allow it, and I downloaded it. It's pretty neat.
Are you able to download audio that way?
I'll test it here while you continue, because Don't you have another app that you want to mention that you will be able to use on the iPad? What's that that link you sent me, that iPod CA Studio.
Oh yeah, the iPad. Basically, it's iPadcaster Studio or iPodcaster Studio. What this app is, I talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. Let me launch it here on my iPhone, and let me launch it up. And what it does is, okay, launching it up, and you'll see here that you're able to record. Just press record to start, and so it's recording right now, and you can see it recording. It's getting levels and all that. I stopped recording, and after that, you can just simply save it, and from there, there's an edit pane, and you're actually able to edit the show, and from there, you're able to publish the show via upload. You can transfer via Wi-Fi, FTP, or email it. And then it's up there on whatever server you use to publish your shows. So I've actually tried this out and tested this out with Libsyn. I was able to record a show, edit the show, and post it to Libsyn, and then using Safari, publish that and post that to the podcast audio stream.
Very cool. Very cool. And that app is what? That's only 99 cents, right?
I believe it was. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The prices change on apps, like it seems like every day.
All right. Well, I just tested it with that browser, Perfect Browser. Mm-hmm. I went to my Model Railcast site and tried to download some audio. It won't let me save it, luckily.
It won't? Okay.
No, and it won't even play my AAC feed, but it'll play my MP3 feed.
Wow.
Huh. But it will let me save images. So apparently you can only save images and not... I wonder if I change the link structure on the website. If I could, I'll have to play around with that and let you know.
Okay. That'd be cool to know if you could do that now. I mean, some other cool things I was thinking about, and if anybody out there listening wants to call in and voice their opinions, you're able to do that by calling in at 209-542-iPad. That's 209-542-4723 for those without the alphabet on their keypads. And we'll talk about what you guys think about padcasting. But some other cool things I thought was, say you are at a conference. I'm using Macworld Expo as an example. And you want to do a roundtable discussion podcast where you're just all sitting around talking about a topic at hand. I thought it'd be pretty cool if you could use the iPad as the central device, say the mixing board or whatever you want to call it. And everyone has iPhones pretty much these days that is into tech and podcasting and things like that. And there's ways that Apple has approved that you're able to connect iPhones to iPhones and now iPhones to iPads via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. What if you have the iPad there and you've got iPhones that you're using as mics now? And so you can have a podcast, a roundtable discussion at a conference on the go with very limited wires, very limited setup, and you're all able to talk. And say you've got the iPad, you're able to bring up and down people to get the levels correct. And say you'd be able with the iPad to export that audio, hook it up to speakers, and you could be, at an expo doing a podcast with an iPad and a bunch of iPhones. What do you think about that?
That is freaking cool, Tim. That's a great... Oh, I just snorted it. Oh, I'm a geek. All right, that is pretty neat. That is a really cool idea because, I've been studying the development stuff. I have about 6 iPhone development books around me. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things is the ability to use like the Bonjour network and talk over whether it be Wi-Fi or even Bluetooth. And if somebody like this company, this iPod CA Studio, they could write an iPad app that would get each of those incoming streams and record each stream to its own channel. I'm not sure if internally if the audio toolkit I'll have to look at it in one of these books. If the audio toolkit allows more than 2 streams, but I don't know. Maybe they can open multiple streams and save them as individual files, and then you could add it. So that is a really neat idea. That would be cool. So the main guy like you would hold the iPad, and you could record over the iPad, while everyone else at the round table is just recording over their iPhones connected to your iPad. And like you said, you can see the levels and everything. That's a really neat idea.
And since the signal you're receiving is like a Wi-Fi signal, and it's recording not a microphone output or just straight sound, it's recording the iPhone inputs, you could then output that to the speakers, and you wouldn't be getting feedback because all that is recording is that Wi-Fi or Bluetooth input. It's not recording the actual sound with a microphone, but rather it's recording, the audio files.
Yeah, good point. It's a neat idea. Well, I think that's the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. It's one of those ideas that I've been thinking about as a bunch of people have iPhones, and I think those will be great input devices for the iPad. So everyone has their private screen or private recording device that inputs into the iPad. So with board games, you're able to have your own private screens so you can see your own stuff. And with the podcasting, you can have your own mic that feeds into the iPad. And I think the idea of the iPhone as an input device is going to just really take off if developers catch on to it.
There you go, developers, if you're listening. Another challenge is laid out to you by iPad Possibilities.
So, we're getting towards the end of this show. Did you have anything you wanted to?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the phone number. Is that a phone number that the listeners can call and leave voicemail that you can play back later?
Sure. The phone number I have set up for this show is done through Google Voice. And when we're not live, as we are right now, it goes straight to voicemail. And then when we are live, I connect that number to my Skype number, and that calls Skype. So when we're live right now, it'll go to me, and we can answer and talk to you on the show. But when we're off air, I disconnect that number from my Google Voice account and put it back on my normal Google Voice account. So that's a number you guys can call to leave voicemails, and we'll play those on the show and answer your questions that way too.
All right, so guys, give that number a call and let us know what kind of possibilities you'd like to see for the iPad, so we can get that out there to the developers and let people know, hey, what's going on. If you come up with an interesting and intriguing idea, you want to share it with us, give us a call. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. The last live show we did actually answered the first feedback from a comment on simply using the iPad as a monitor, as a, VNC application.
Well, and it's funny. I was listening to that show, Tim, and I downloaded one of the VNC apps and played around with it, and it's pretty neat. The iPhone's just too small to do it, so it really is. It would be neat to see that on the iPad, which apparently we're going to get to see in about a month. So I think people are – I don't know about you listeners out there who's getting restless and excited what's going to happen. That's one thing I've kind of wondered, Tim. Why don't you tell the listeners once this iPad comes out, we're talking you got this great show called iPad Possibilities. And, you got a month left and the iPad comes out. Is the show over?
Oh, absolutely not. Once the iPad actually comes out, my hope is that we have developers on that have some big ambitions and big dreams as far as where software can go on the iPad, and talk to them and see what they're working on, see the possibilities that they have. And I think we'll always have more possibilities that we can think of and more use cases that haven't been thought of. If you look at the iPhone, you see use cases that now you would have never thought of when it originally came out. So I think more use cases will always be around. More developers will come up with new ideas. And I'm just excited to start covering the apps that are actually out there for the iPad. And as we start covering some cool things that are being done on the iPad.
You cut out, Tim.
I did. Okay.
I saw your lips moving, but no, nothing was coming out.
Are you hearing me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. But yeah, basically, once iPad comes out, I'm really excited to start playing with it and start having developers that actually have apps out and kind of highlight the apps that are bringing the most potential out of the iPad and talking about some potential use cases that aren't being used yet. You know. So
basically, the show will really go, for lack of a better word, full steam when the iPad comes out. I mean, this is just the beginning. When the iPad does come out, we could basically open a can of worms and say, all right, we're going to talk about existing apps for the iPad, and we're going to talk about possibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Very cool. All right, guys. So, again, let Tim know. Give us a call. What kind of things are you really excited for, looking forward to when the iPad comes out? What apps do you use now that you think you'd really have to have for the iPad? I'll tell you what, Tim, one of the things I'm really looking forward to for what they're charging, Apple is Keynote and Pages and Numbers for $10 a piece. I'm looking forward to playing with those. Yeah,
and I'm really excited about Omni Group's production suite coming to the iPad. That's enough to buy an iPad for me. Just the Omni Group apps. Especially Omni Plan, Omni Focus, and all.
Right.
They make such awesome apps.
Yeah, they do make great apps. And I'll tell you what, have you played with any of the printing apps on the iPhone yet?
I haven't, just because I don't do a lot of printing. I live in a digital life where I don't use paper that much.
Yeah, I can understand that. But if you have something with a little more power and more, you're going to use this more like your regular computing device, whether it be around the home or out on the. I think there may be more of a reason for you to print from it than, say, an iPhone.
Right.
I mean, it's almost the size of a piece of paper, and if you're working in Pages or Numbers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for people that want to print, you'll be able to do that. I even think for people that want to scan, eventually you'll be able to scan on the iPad via. Right now on Snow Leopard, if you open up image capture or even preview, you'll see a list of shared scanners. And I think with the iPad, you'll eventually be able to scan from shared scanners in your house even. So I think printing and scanning will both be there on the iPad, even natively, I believe, at one point in time.
All right. Well, let me do, since you started this and this is your show, let me do a little mini interview with you, Tim.
Okay, yeah, sure, no problem.
So, when did you first get into all this Apple stuff?
Basically when college started. I got my first Mac, the best Mac I could find, the 17-inch MacBook Pro. That was my first Mac, and that's...
And you didn't use a computer before that?
Before that, I used the Windows box in our house, and
the family Windows box. Okay.
The family's Windows box, and I eventually had one for my room, but I wasn't really that much in the technology just because I didn't enjoy using it. And even like a year prior, when I knew I was going to get a Mac, I subscribed to Macworld, and for about a year, I had those magazines coming in, getting me all excited. And when I finally got it, within a month, I was just absolutely hooked and a geek and all those wonderful things.
So then when did you graduate to an iPhone?
Sorry about that one. It came out, of course, in 2007. And our family was on Sprint at the time. So obviously I could not get an iPhone, right? So I played with the iPhone once it came out. And 2 weeks later, I purchased the iPhone.
Even though you were still on Sprint.
Right.
Okay.
And so I was probably one of the first to actually use the iPhone as an iPod Touch. So for about a year, I actually had the original iPhone that I used as an iPod Touch. It had no service. I, did jailbreaking things to open it up. So I actually used it with applications its first year before it became official. And About a year later, our family switched over to AT&T.
Okay, wait a minute. How did you get an iPhone without signing a contract?
Well, if you can remember, the first year, it wasn't subsidized. It was $600. It was the full price.
Right.
And you bought it, and what you're expected to do is go home and activate it in iTunes.
And you just didn't do that.
And I didn't activate it. You had to do it through hackery ways, but I had to jailbreak it and, say it was activated when it wasn't. Things like that. So
okay, I see.
Yeah, I used it for about a year as an iPod Touch, and then our family switched over to AT&T, and I've been using it ever since as a phone. So, yeah, that's when I graduated over to that.
Okay. Yeah. And then when did you start following this iPad stuff? From the get-go?
From the get-go, when I heard the rumors about a possible Apple tablet coming out, and I actually wasn't too excited about the prospect of having, it's like, what's this device going to do for me? How's it going to make my life better or anything like that? And when it came out, when I saw the keynote, it just hit me that it's going to be revolutionary. It's going to be more so than the iPhone even. I think I'm just so excited about what this device will do for computing. So, I think,
Okay, so you don't, listen to a lot of other podcasts. A lot of people are just calling this thing a big iPod Touch. That doesn't, you don't have that sense?
I listened to a bunch of podcasts, and one thing I've noticed is the people that have actually held the device versus the people that have not held the device, there's a huge difference in opinion there. The people that have held the device know it's revolutionary, know it's going to fly off the shelves, know it's going to be wildly successful. Because they know the speed of the device, they know how it feels in your hands, they know all the things that make it an Apple product. Those that have not held the device are calling it a big iPod Touch, mainly because they don't know how fast it is, how it feels in your hand, and just the Apple experience that comes. And most of them don't get the point that Apple didn't really update the operating system too much for this release. They didn't want to blow people away with a new operating system and a new device in one keynote. So I think in June, when the 4.0 operating system comes out, it's going to blow people away with what it's going to be able to do at that point in time. I think people are still looking at it from it's running this operating system and can't do all this stuff they want it to do.
I think people are going to be freaking out when the new iPhone comes out, too.
Yeah. And that should be sometime in March if tradition holds correct. I mean, as far as announcing 4.0 and everything.
Yeah.
So I could see them doing they're releasing the iPad April 3rd. I could see them the last week of March doing an iPhone operating system 4.0 announcement. And they'll announce all these amazing things that you can only get in the iPad. And I think they'll do that the week before, and then everyone will get an iPad because of the new operating system coming out. I think that'll be Apple's master plan to sell even more.
No, it might be, but I really don't see from a development standpoint them having two operating systems at the same time. I mean, I think, they may delay 4.0 going to current iPhone owners, but I think it will follow it soon after. Yeah, especially when the new iPhone comes out.
Yeah, I don't think I'll turn the Android where they have, people on 1.5 and 2.3 at the same time. But I think they'll have some interface elements, some things you can do on the iPad you won't be able to do on the iPhone simply because of screen size. Like you saw the pop-out windows on pages and whatnot. You're not going to be able to do that on the iPhone. And there'll be certain things that the iPad will be able to do that the iPhone won't be able to do. It'll be the same operating system, though,
Well, yeah, it's like iPad and iTouch. Yeah,
right.
Certain things they can't do. Now, one of the other things I heard some rumors on was a refresh of the notebook of the MacBook line.
Right.
So if that comes out, they may have to push back your prediction on iPhone 4.0 announcement.
Yeah,
I mean, because they're not going to do
out.
those back to back, right?
You wouldn't think so. And I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, I wouldn't like this, but I mean, I could see them waiting until school season. It's March now. I could see them end of April doing their notebook announcements for back to school. I'm not sure how quick we'll see the notebooks. We've been hearing rumors for a while now.
Yeah.
They're supposed to come out in January, but...
All right, let me ask you one other thing before we go here. This is related to the iPad rumors that are still flying about. What about this whole camera thing? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think the iPad will have a camera in the first generation. But I do think the second generation may have a built-in camera, and it may not. I'm thinking if you have a front-facing camera on the iPad, I haven't held an iPad, so I don't know how this would be, but I don't want the camera pointing up my nose when I'm talking to someone on Skype. I think, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
right.
I don't think the screen's smaller. It won't give you where you want to point it. It won't give you the right place to point it.
Yeah, you'd have to hold it at an angle.
So I think what they'll do is they'll have an external camera, like an eyesight camera. They had those a while back, where it'll either clip onto it, so you can actually adjust the camera angle. You can adjust all that stuff, or it'll have a stand so it can be next to you, or so you can point it at whatever way you're pointing it. So I think they'll do that externally, at least with the first generation. They may do that with the second generation, have it built inside or something. They may wait until it's completely incredible where you can adjust the angle of the lens within the iPad itself, you know. I'm not sure how they would do that, but I think they'll wait until it's perfect.
All right. Yeah, I saw the rumors, you know, like that one website that was talking about the people refurb iPhones, and they ordered some parts, and there was a place for a camera, and it looked just like the same spot you would see a camera go on a MacBook.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then there's speculation that, yeah, they didn't release everything that could possibly be available on the first iPad in the keynote, but we may get surprised. And hey, you know, one other thing, I also heard that if you do wait in line for an iPad, that Apple is going to give you a free gift.
Oh, really? I haven't heard that yet.
I heard that on some podcast, and I was trying to think what that could be. As long as it's not, if it's not something cheesy, like when I stood in line the first time for the iPhone. Well, I got a flashlight with the Apple logo on it that lasted for about a week.
Yeah.
And the batteries are replaceable. What a surprise.
Typical Apple, yeah.
But wouldn't it be cool if you did sit in line and you got one of those nice covers that also converts it?
Oh, yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
That would be worth standing in line. However, now that they've announced this April 12th pre-order, and then you could pick it up or go to the Apple Store and pick it up or have it delivered, then what's the point of standing in line? It sounds like they don't want people to stand in line.
Probably the, the sense of community that, everyone loves, anticipation, and standing in line with others that are anticipating is all the more exciting.
Yeah, but it sounds like they don't want you to do that if you can pre-order it and just have it shipped to you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they did that with the iPhone 3GS too, I believe.
Yeah, that's how I had mine. I had that one shipped. I didn't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very cool. Very cool. All right, guys. Call that number. Let us know what iPad possibilities you'd like to talk about. And Tim, thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. That number, again, is 209-542-iPad. It's 209-542-iPad. And a couple quick things I want to do before we close out. I want to announce that the iPad Possibilities podcast is now a part of the Possibilities Network. And this is a new media network. Basically, you have NBC and CBS and all those traditional networks. And what this is, it's a network basically based online that you get the TV shows, video shows, audio shows, radio, publications like a newspaper, all that kind of stuff done online.
It's like Twit.
Yeah, like Twit, exactly. Twit's a technology-based network, and this one is a bit different. It's going to be based on hopes and dreams. The mission statement basically is this network is dedicated to helping you expand your mind as to what is possible. And our goal is to help you realize your potential through different shows and publications. And we also will provide a community to support you in realizing your dreams. So through different shows, our hope is that you will see potential and possibilities in areas you haven't seen yet. Next week or the week after, we're going to be starting up a show called Today in Success. And that's a show I'm very excited about, to help people see potential and possibilities in themselves to achieve more. So we'll have a bunch of different shows covering a wide variety of topics: technology, success, relationships, any and all things that will relate to possibilities and potential. And we'll have shows in a variety of formats. We'll have audio shows, video shows, live shows such as this one, and publications, as well as a radio stream where you'll be able to listen, hopefully on the road on your iPhone, to our radio, which will have the shows that we pre-recorded, such as this one, and our goal is to have live shows as well on there, just like Twit does. And we also have currently set up forums and a chat room so you can talk about different possibilities you see in the different areas. So if you want to find out some more information on this network, you just simply go to thepossibilitiesnetwork.com, and it's up and running now. And also, we are looking for people that have podcasts and blogs that relate to that mission statement. If you have a podcast or a blog that you'd like to be, if you'd like to be part of this network, please contact me at thepossibilitiesnetwork@gmail.com, and I'd love to talk with you about that. And wrapping up the show, if you want to find more information about this show, we are on the Possibilities Network, as I said, and just go to the iPad Possibilities page. And if you want to email this show, you can do that at iPadpossibilities@gmail.com. And as I said earlier, to leave a voice message, just leave a message at 209-542-iPad. That's 209-542-4723. And also, if you'd like to support this show, you can do that in one of three different ways. The first way, as I mentioned earlier, you can purchase the iPad Possibilities podcast app for $2.99. And what that app will do, it will give you 24 hours. You'll get the show in advance. You'll get the show a full day before everyone else gets it on that app. You'll also get extra content, and you'll be able to download the show for offline access when you're on the road or whatnot. So that's available for $2.99 in the App Store. And also, I'd love if you guys could leave a review of this show. I'd love to know what we can do better, what you like about this show. Just feedback, leave those reviews on iTunes. That would be greatly appreciated. And also, as I mentioned earlier, I have started up a iPad fund. I'm trying to get a fund going so I can actually buy an iPad without going completely broke when I buy it. So if you donate anything you can donate would be great. If you go to thepossibilitiesnetwork.com, click on the iPad Possibilities Podcast. At the bottom of that page, you'll see Help Tim Buy an iPad. And there's different options of donations from $1 to $100. And there's also a subscription of $2.50 a month. You can cancel at any time. But that's just another way to help support this show and help me get an iPad without breaking the bank, to get you guys the best coverage of the iPad and the possibilities of it. So any support you can show would be greatly appreciated. And once again, if you want to join in on the conversation, this show is recorded live every Sunday night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And you can find this live show on the Possibilities Network. We have a live page with a chat room and all that. And once again, thank you for listening. And this is the iPad Possibilities Podcast, live from Indianapolis, Indiana. We will talk again soon. Thanks. Bye.